as half the teams in National Hockey League, maybe more, are planning on preparing free agent offers for center John Tavares. There is no certainty he will even be available for any team other than the New York Islanders on July 1. Tavares may, in fact, be signed prior to that. The Tavares camp is not doing the regular free agent thing yet right now, telling everyone and anyone they will be available in just over a month from now. The word being used is if, as in if we're available. If they have a process to deal with offers and work with the Islanders, they are certainly not sharing that information. And new Islanders boss Lou Lamoriello changes the landscape in two ways, bringing credibility to the gas fire that has been this franchise and bringing a professional silence to any kind of negotiation that will take place. High-level hockey players rarely leave the nest in free agency. Steven Stamkos remained in Tampa. The Sedin Twins stayed in Vancouver. Almost every time there has been anticipation of a high-end free agent coming out, the player stays with his team. Lamoriello has lost free agents before. Scott Niedermayer and Zach Parise were prominent losses in New Jersey, and the sense here is he will convince Tavares to stay on Long Island. Tavares, as usual, is saying little. But in a lot of NHL front offices, there are lineups being drawn up with his name on them, just to see what the club would like on paper. The dreaming, what if we had Tavares, has already begun. Reality begins late next month. This and that will Mark Hunter be joining Lamoriello in mid-July when he's allowed to sign with another NHL team. There's nothing going on at this time, Hunter told me. I asked if the key words were at this time. He just laughed. I asked Lamoriello about Hunter, whom he greatly admires. Lamoriello giggled. He also giggled. For the record, first time I asked him about him going to the Islanders. Almost everyone I talked to in the NHL speaks highly of the new Leafs assistant GM Lawrence Gilman. But a number of hockey executives wonder about the construction of the Leafs front office. Assistant GM Brandon Pridham is known best for his work with the collective bargaining agreement and the salary cap. Gilman is known for basically the same thing. Don't they have two of the same ass to former NHL GM? What the Leafs don't have other than President Brendan Shanahan, a hardcore hockey man. The Stanley Cup Final, a team built by George McPhee against a team built by George McPhee. Of Washington's top 10 scorers in the playoffs, 7 were acquired by McPhee. Also brought in by McPhee, goaltender Braden Holtby and Game 7 hero Andrei Burakovsky, among others. The world is indeed upside down. I covered boxing in Toronto last week and am going to Las Vegas today for the Stanley Cup. I used to cover hockey in Toronto and go to Vegas to cover boxing. Is it a three-man race for the Conn Smythe Trophy after 3 rounds? Marc-Andre Fleury in lead with Alexander Ovechkin and Evgeny Kuznetsov in the place and show spots. It's Fleury's trophy to lose, but Ovechkin and Kuznetsov have been so impressive for the Capitals. Here and THERE, I admire the heck out of Adrian Wojnarowski, the ESPN basketball reporter, who breaks just about every story in the NBA. What I don't admire is someone in the Raptors front office contacting Wojnarowski seconds after Dwayne Casey was fired so Casey could be in his car driving home and hear about his firing on radio within a few minutes of it happening. Whoever the leak is should be ashamed of himself. Casey is a candidate to coach in Detroit after former Raptor Ed Stefanski took over the Pistons. The wonder is, with all that money going to Stan Van Gundy's payout, how much will be left for the incoming coach? My best memory of Stefanski in Toronto. His name was used as a password for some Raptor internet sites. LeBron James is one win away from maybe the greatest achievement of his remarkable career. He has become the one athlete in sport you can't take your eyes off. Not for a complaining second. So if the NBA had Oscar awards for Best Supporting Actor, who wins? Kevin Love for his flop and complaining on every single call, a Masai Ujiri for the "How Much I Love Casey" speech. This is where playing in Canada can hurt NBA players. Og Anunoby was left off the NBA's all-rookie team when he clearly deserved to be at least a second-team All-Star. Jaylen Brown is 21 years old and better than anyone on the Raptors. That stings, just a little, doesn't it? Seen and heard. This is how bad this Blue Jays has been. Kendrys Morales, one of the worst free agent signings in club history, has pitched better than HES hit. Blue Jays management won't tell you this, but they had concerns about Roberto Osuna's life choices and decision-making long before the domestic violence charges of this. The Jays are everything they weren't supposed to be: weak in starting pitching, lacking in offense, not getting any kind of leadership or production from Josh Donaldson. Terrible defensively. Teoscar Hernandez clearly has a major league bat. What he doesn't have is a major league glove. He should become the Jays' designated hitter, and the Jays should do with Morales what the Red Sox did with Hanley Ramirez. Attendance is down 11,000 a game this year for the Jays, and some people are blaming the stadium experience. What nonsense. The Jays filled the place when winning. If people believed in them, they fill the place now. Yes, the Rogers Center needs a major renovation, but that has nothing to do with fans. Rogers owns the team and the stadium. If you want a renovation, do it. If not, shut up about it. It's not a fans issue in any way. If you didn't read our piece on how the Blue Jays wound up with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you should. Here is the link. If you go back to the playoffs of 2016, here are Jose Bautista's batting stats since then. He is hitting .199 in 657 at-bats, with 131 hits, 194 strikeouts, 26 home runs and 75 RBI. And another thing, this is the fifth time post-original expansion that two NHL franchises who had never won the Stanley Cup were playing for the championship. The last time, 2007, when Anaheim defeated Ottawa, the new Senators, not the old ones from the 20s, Washington lost Carl Alzner, Justin Williams, Nate Schmidt, Kevin Shattenkirk and Marcus Johansson from last year's Capitals team and became a better team. Weird, I know it's his nickname, but every time I hear someone calling Fleury Flower, I think that's Guy Lafleur's nickname. What a sad and weak ending it was for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So great in beating up on Boston, so lost in the final two games against Washington. Word around is that Pittsburgh is exploring the possibility of trading Phil Kessel. Possibly because coach Mike Sullivan has had it with Kessel, and possibly because general manager Jim Rutherford needs the salary cap space, maybe to take a run at Tavares. Little more than a week in, and Johnny Manziel has set the unofficial record, most interviews in a CFL week. When Shanahan wanted to stock the Leafs front office with the brightest in hockey, he hired Hunter and Kyle Dubas, and Pridham took a real good run at Kelly McCrimmon from Brandon. Last minute, McCrimmon said no. Now McCrimmon has played a huge role as assistant to McPhee in Vegas as the craziest hockey in history continues on. The next purchase for Joshua Ho-Sang, shaving cream. Lou meet Josh. Josh meet Lou. For the seventh straight year, Sunday Night Football is the #1 TV show in America. I've eaten food, talked to my neighbor, been in the washroom, bought concessions, texted and typed while the national anthem was played at sporting events. Guess, aside from obvious athletic deficiencies, I could never make it in the NFL. Today is Andy Frost's last day on Q107. He's been a part of so many of our lives. From all of us, I'll take the liberty to say thanks. Happy birthday to Josh Levo 25, Jake the Snake Roberts 63, Frank Thomas 50, Jeff Bagwell 50, George Brancarter 87, Aaron Brown 26 and PJ Stock 43. And hey, whatever became of Dinia Subra Simmons at postmedia.com, twitter.com/Simmons. Dubas should change policy with Gilman. Kyle Dubas' first error in judgment as general manager of the Leafs is muzzling Lawrence Gilman, his new assistant GM. Doing things the Lou Lamoriello way. In this case, though, it's a mistake. Gilman, who went to law school with Sherry Bazin's daughter and was mentored in hockey in Arizona by Cliff Fletcher, is a skilled communicator and has been something of a media darling in Vancouver, where he previously worked for the Canucks. He would likely become the same in Toronto, if given similar opportunity. But Dubas has chosen to stay with the Lamoriello policy for his staff. The general manager speaks publicly and no one else in management does. Toronto isn't like most NHL cities. There are 4 newspapers and major players here. There are 2 all-sports radio stations and 2 national sports networks here. The media demands for a GM can be overwhelming, and the truth is, Dubas isn't particularly comfortable dealing with it all. No one was better at it than Fletcher, who understood how to play the press game perfectly in a challenging market. Dubas would be wise to seek the counsel of Fletcher about his success in that area, and at the same time would be wise to take this less off Gilman, who would actually make his life a lot easier by buffering Dubas from the media. Why Jays want fire Don Gibbons? The worse the Blue Jays play, and lately, it's been pretty bad, the more you would normally hear about pressure being on manager Don Gibbons and his future being in question. But Gibbons is not about to be fired for a simple pragmatic reason. If the Jays fire him now, all the pressure of this flailing baseball team will shift to management, to club president Mark Shapiro and general manager Ross Atkins. Gibbons, in essence, serves as a protector from the wolves barking at management. And because Gibbons is so Well liked by both his players and by the media who cover the Jays, he will get every last chance to straighten out this mess. At least until the end of the. Gibbons has already joked to people about this being his last as manager of the Jays. Joking is what he does. It hides what's really going on. He doesn't want to leave, doesn't necessarily deserve to leave, but in a market in which Dwayne Casey got gonged after winning the equivalent of 115 baseball games, Gibbons is looking to get back to .500. And that's about as much as is possible with this suspect roster and this lost starting pitching staff. The more this Blue Jays heads in the wrong direction, the more management needs Gibbons in place, for their own protection. So much for the Toronto Wave. The Argos won the Grey Cup in November. And Toronto FC won the MLS Cup in December. And the Leafs had a record-breaking. And the Raptors were first in the East with a record-breaking. And Toronto was riding this crazy, unlikely, unprecedented wave of sporting success after so many years of so-so sports. Then April began. The Leafs went out first round, changed general managers, changed their front office, and certainly there are questions about the direction in which they are headed. The Raptors fired coach Dwayne Casey after the greatest regular in history in another LeBron-influenced playoff defeat without not much comeback. The Raptors don't have a coach right now, have a flawed roster when compared to teams still alive in the NBA playoffs, and are in need of significant change in numerous areas when the next begins. They could easily drop from first in the East to fourth or fifth or lower next. And then there's Toronto FC. Some called them the best team ever in MLS. They lost a championship one year, came back the next even better, celebrating on a cold night in December. Today, they have the 18th best record in the league. Injuries aside, there has been a disaster. And the Blue Jays, well, after playoff appearances in 2015 and 2016 which began the Toronto turnaround, they are back in nowhere land, neither here nor there. The great wave of Toronto winners has hit a wall.